Peace family, it's Bakari Lumumba, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on black. I'm back once again. We have another video featuring the Crown Prince of the Lumumba family. Please introduce yourself.
Zaina Malika Lumumba.
And we're going to be discussing issues pertinent to black preteens. This is a special video just for my Z-Butt. And so we've kind of talked offline about issues pertinent to black teens, but before we get started in that, many people probably question, why do you have your daughter doing a video? And I'm so glad that you asked. But if you're familiar with the work of Thomas Sankara, who was the 5th president of Burkina Faso, which he named the land of the upright people, he created something called the pioneer movement. And that pioneer movement was to inculcate the youth of Burkina Faso, particularly the children of Ouagadougou, which is the capital, to learn, to gain a political education so that they would not be used against the best interests of their own people. And that is due to what we call the miseducation machine, which is a term that was coined by the late, great Dr. Carter G. Woodson. If you don't know about Dr. Carter G. Woodson, you should check him out. We all know that he wrote the book, The Miseducation of the Negro, in 1933. And if you read the book today, you would think he wrote it yesterday. Second, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, as we know, was the second African-American to earn a PhD from Harvard University. The first was W.E.B. Du Bois. And most importantly, Dr. Carter G. Woodson created Black History Week, or Negro History Week, which later became Black History Month. And he created the Association for the Study of African-American Life and History. So Z, when we talk about this miseducation machine, where black students are going to school and they're learning to what? Praise and revere and admire everyone else but themselves. Is this something that you've noticed in school?
Yes.
How so?
In social studies, we don't really talk about black history. We talk about other history.
Okay. And what histories do they talk about or do they teach at your school?
We just got started on a timeline, so not really that much.
Okay.
Just stuff on, just like games right now.
Okay.
Like old games.
Okay, but is your school the majority black students?
Yes.
Okay. And so you would think it would be quite natural then to have a black-centered curriculum, but that's not the case. So what are some solutions that we could come up with to address that issue if we aren't able to fund and develop our own independent school? And I say that because we know that the concept of having an independent school is something that's been out there for a long time. Dr. Umar Johnson has raised money, and there are a number of independent black academies. One of the best that I know of is the Lotus Academy in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But for the black community, let's say in Ohio or Florida, or let's say Billings, Montana, for crying out loud, that don't have the resources to create their own school, what are some solutions that we can address in the here and now to address the miseducation pipeline or machine that's taking place?
We can have Saturday schools.
Okay, and we've done that in our hometown of Dayton, Ohio, where we've had a Juma Mosi. For those of you who don't know, Juma Mosi is Kiswahili for Saturday school, where we focused on from 9:30 or 8:30 to 9 o'clock to noon, African-centered instruction, right, in history and literature and arts, music, etc. So it's very important that way that we are able to inculcate a sense of pride by the children learning about their ancestors and what we've done before to create a sense of accomplishment and how we've contributed to human civilization. What are some other solutions you think we could address when focusing on the miseducation machine for individuals or communities that aren't able to create their own independent schools?
We can have parents volunteer for schools. Okay,
and volunteering is good, but some people say, why volunteer? I have to work. Why would I do something for free? Why do you think that's a good reason to volunteer at the school, having parents volunteer at the school? Would it be because having a presence at the school can help influence curriculum decisions?
Yes.
You're able to develop a rapport with the leadership?
Yes.
Right.
For parents to probably understand what kids are doing in school, what they're learning about.
Right. Exactly, because they could be teaching you that Christopher Columbus discovered America. And we know that's not true, correct? He was lost, right? And the Indians saved him. So it's very important to have an engaged presence at the school. I know growing up, my parents would always tell me at parent-teacher conferences, at volunteer days, they were only parents who showed up. So we want to make sure that we as parents, we are engaged all the way through, not just in those so-called tender years of preschool and kindergarten. What are some other issues that you think can help counter this miseducation machine that we see black students having to deal with in public education, even private education for that matter.
Take a leadership role in PTA.
Right. PTA, for those of you who don't know, is the Parent-Teacher Association, right? And so I know I've been president of Parent-Teacher Association, and at your previous school, they had what was known as a family night every month. September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. They had a family night. So I made sure that when December came along, the family night event that we did was Kwanzaa, right? We didn't do Christmas, no white man, ho, 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 coming down the tree. We wanted to make sure that everything that we did was centered on a black perspective, a black paradigm, the black experience, right? Not that we're shoving ethnocentrism down our throats, but we know that they try to inculcate our children with multiculturalism, and they learn about everyone else's culture except their own. For example, and you may not remember the Z because you was in 3rd grade at the time, but at your school, at DECA, they had a non-denominational, keyword non-denominational, holiday mixer where they discussed what? Hanukkah. There were no Jewish children at the school. They discussed Chinese New Year. There were no Chinese children at the school. They discussed Christmas. They discussed Day of the Dead. There were no Mexican children at the school. But what was strangely omitted from the non-denominational holiday mixer list was Kwanzaa. And so I addressed this not only with the principal, but also with the deputy superintendent and the superintendent, and make sure that Kwanzaa will be implemented at the school, since the school was 99% black. And guess who implemented the Kwanzaa celebrations? Myself. So we want to make sure that when we are addressing the issue, we also we're providing the solution. We don't want to have the people who cause the problem create the solution. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
It makes sense to allow the person who caused the problem to create the solution? Well, I would say no, and I'm going to tell you why. It's something called interest convergence. If you ever get a chance, we know critical race theory is a hot button topic in the news. But one of the core tenets of critical race theory, according to Derek Bell, who was the first black man to be president of Harvard Law Review, is what? White people will create a problem, then they will propose a solution to the problem that on its face looks like it's going to help us, but in the long run it helps them. So I'm going to give you an example for yourself and for the viewers. We know that up until maybe the 1960s, roughly, all predominantly white institutions, colleges, were what? Segregated. Black people couldn't go. And if we did, it was only 1, 2 of us, and we had to sit in the hallway while classes were being taught. However, after black schools began to what? Win on a gridiron and on a basketball court, white institutions said we will recruit black players. So on the face it says, hey, they're integrating, we have access. But guess what came with that access? The white institutions got all the money from the athletic programs. And the HBCUs, so the black colleges and universities, have done what? They've struggled financially, many of them having to close down. So we want to make sure that when we say there's a problem, we're the ones implementing the solution. Can that coincide with what principle of Kwanzaa?
Self-determination.
Self-determination, Kuji Shakalia. And we know the principles of Kwanzaa isn't something that we just celebrate for 7 days in December. It's something we should be practicing, what, 24/7, what? 365. Absolutely. So we're signing off just very, very quickly. We're talking about just a quick tidbit on issues pertinent to black preteens. Zaina, you're a preteen. How about you let the people know how old you are?
I'm 11 years old.
11 years old. And what's your hometown?
Dayton.
Dayton what?
Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio, the Gem City, birthplace of aviation, home of Paulus Dunbar, and the Ohio players. We're going to leave it at that. But we think it's very important that we address this issue. So like I said, if you can't fund your own independent school, which is a novel idea, and that we of course advocate that, have a Juma Mosi, a Saturday school. If you can't do that, be engaged, volunteer, find out what's going on at the school, make sure you understand the curriculum. If you can't, organize other parents. And last but not least, take a leadership role in the PTA. Don't just be a member of the PTA. Don't be the treasurer or the secretary. Make sure that you're the president of the PTA, because as they always state, they say, we always hear this notion of, and I've talked about this in one of my papers, they talk about, well, we want to have a seat at the table. I argue absolutely not. We don't want to have a seat at the table, because if you have a seat at the table, you are a black diner at a white establishment eating white food. And what is that white food, Z? That white food is what? Symbolic victories? What? That white food is what? Incremental gains that amount to nothing, right? We want to make sure that what we get is what? Power. The power to what? Create our own destiny. So we're signing off. This is Bakari Lumumba.
Zaina Malika Lumumba.
And until next time, peace.